Commander Diana Novick stood at the observation deck of the UES Hyperion, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she watched the stars blur past at FTL speeds. 20 years of military service hadn't prepared her for what she'd discovered in the Proxima Centauri colony's data archives. The Krethians had been among them all along. The evidence was irrefutable: strange energy signatures in the outer sectors, unexplained communications blackouts, and colonists reporting odd shadows at the edge of their peripheral vision. The aliens hadn't announced their presence with massive fleets or apocalyptic weapons. They had simply watched, studied, waited. Lieutenant Marcus Wung burst onto the bridge, his dark eyes wide with urgency. "Commander, we've decoded more of the encrypted files from Proxima. The Krethians, they're not just observing. They're building something in the Kuiper belt of every human-colonized system." Diana's jaw tightened. She'd served with Marcus for 5 years, and she'd never seen him this rattled. "Show me." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a network of structures that defied human engineering. Crystalline architectures that seemed to pulse with their own inner light, all carefully hidden behind planetoids and stellar debris. They weren't observation posts or research stations. They were weapons platforms. "Get me Admiral Chen on quantum comm," Diana ordered, her voice steady despite the cold fear settling in her stomach. "And Marcus, initiate silent running protocols. If they've been watching us this long, we have to assume they're watching us now." The next 48 hours became a blur of encrypted transmissions, emergency meetings, and mounting evidence of the Krethian presence. The alien empire had spread its influence across 17 sectors, always staying just beyond human detection range. They were methodical, patient, and absolutely convinced of their superiority. What they hadn't counted on was human intuition. It was Junior Communications Officer Raj Patel who first noticed the pattern. Fresh out of the academy, he hadn't been conditioned to ignore his instincts in favor of pure logic. "Commander," he called out during the graveyard shift, "I think I know why they chose these specific locations for their weapons platforms." Diana leaned over his console, studying the overlay of Krethian positions against known human settlement patterns. "They're not just covering our current colonies," she breathed. "They're positioning themselves around every system we might expand to next." The revelation hit her like a physical blow. The Krethians hadn't been preparing for a war. They'd been preparing to prevent humanity from ever becoming a true spacefaring civilization. Each weapon platform was positioned to cut off potential expansion routes, to bottle humanity up in their existing systems until they could be properly contained. "They think they know us," Diana murmured, straightening up as plans began forming in her mind. "They think they can predict every move we'll make because they've been studying us for so long, but they've never seen humans with their backs against the wall." She turned to her crew, seeing the same determination reflected in their eyes. "Send word to Fleet Command. Tell them humanity just got pushed into a corner, and that's exactly where we're at our most dangerous." The message went out across human space, carried by quantum-entangled communications that even the Krethians couldn't intercept. As Diana watched her crew prepare for what was coming, she realized that the aliens' greatest mistake hadn't been underestimating humanity's technology or military might. They had underestimated the human spirit itself. In the days that followed, as battle plans were drawn and alliances were forged, Diana found herself remembering an old quote from her academy days. "The most dangerous creature is not the one with the sharpest claws, but the one with nothing left to lose." The Krethians were about to learn that lesson the hard way. They had spent years meticulously planning humanity's containment, but they had failed to account for one crucial factor: humans didn't play by anyone's rules but their own. As the UES Hyperion prepared for what would become the first battle of a war that would shake the galaxy, Diana made a silent promise to herself and her crew. The Krethians thought they had planned for every contingency, predicted every possible human response. But they were about to discover that humanity's greatest strength lay in being completely, gloriously unpredictable. The silent invasion was over. The time for silence had passed, and the universe was about to learn why you should never, ever corner a species that had spent its entire history learning to overcome impossible odds. Admiral James Akanjo wasn't a man who believed in miracles. He believed in preparation, strategy, and the unique human ability to turn desperate situations into unlikely victories. As he stood in the war room of Titan Base, watching holographic projections of Krethian fleet movements. He knew they would need all three. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, Captain Yuki Tanaka reported, her hologram flickering slightly as it transmitted from the Europa Defense Station. Standard engagement protocols would be suicide. Then we won't engage them conventionally, James replied, his fingers dancing across the tactical display. The Krethians expect us to either surrender or launch a direct assault. They've planned for both scenarios, so we'll do neither. The assembled officers watched as he pulled up detailed scans of the Krethian weapon platforms. Their crystalline structures weren't just beautiful, they were perfect. Too perfect. And in that perfection, James had found their weakness. They've created a work of art, he explained, zooming in on the neural interface nodes that controlled each platform. But art can be disrupted. The plan that emerged over the next few hours was exactly the kind of strategy that made humans such a terrifying species to face in combat. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't predictable, and it certainly wasn't what any advanced civilization would consider proper military doctrine. First Officer Elena Rodriguez of the stealth ship UES Shadowdancer summed it up best. We're going to throw paint on their Mona Lisa and run away laughing. The operation began 3 days later. While the main fleet gathered at Jupiter's L4 point, drawing Krethian attention, small teams of ships like the Shadowdancer slipped through the gaps in their sensor network. Each carried a payload that would have made any self-respecting military engineer cry electronic warfare devices cobbled together from mining equipment, modified terraforming catalysts, and what one technician called weaponized chaos. The Krethians never saw it coming. Their perfect network, their immaculate platforms, their precisely calculated battle plans, all of it relied on systems that were too advanced to fail. But they had never encountered a species that excelled at making things fail in spectacular and unpredictable ways. Launch the resonance cascade, James ordered, watching as hundreds of small ships activated their devices simultaneously. The effect was immediate and devastating. The crystalline structures began to vibrate at frequencies they were never designed to handle. Their neural networks, accustomed to processing pure logic and mathematical precision, were suddenly bombarded with random data packets, human music, and what appeared to be recipes for chocolate chip cookies. The Krethian response was exactly what James had predicted. Their ships moved to protect the platforms in textbook formations, executing perfect defensive maneuvers. But perfection was their weakness. They couldn't adapt fast enough when the human fleet suddenly emerged from behind Titan, flying in patterns that broke every rule of space combat. Status report, James called out as chaos erupted across the system. Krethian formations are breaking down, Elena reported, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Their ships are trying to establish new command and control protocols, but our electronic warfare is forcing them to process each order individually. They can't coordinate. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. Human ships darted between Krethian vessels like swarms of angry insects, their apparently random movements actually part of a carefully orchestrated dance of destruction. When the Krethians adjusted their shields to block human weapons, they found their energy systems disrupted by mining charges repurposed into electromagnetic pulse devices. But it was the psychological impact that proved most decisive. The Krethians had never faced an enemy that seemed to embrace chaos as a tactical advantage. Their commanders, used to fighting with precise calculations and predetermined strategies, found themselves paralyzed by the sheer unpredictability of human combat methods. James watched as the perfect crystalline platforms, the work of centuries of Krethian engineering, began to shatter one by one. "Send the message," he ordered quietly. The transmission was broadcast on all frequencies in all languages. To the Krethian Empire, this is humanity's response to your attempted containment. We will not be caged, we will not be controlled, and we are just getting started. As the last Krethian ships retreated in disarray, James allowed himself a small smile. The battle was won, but he knew this was only the beginning. The Krethians would return, and next time they would be prepared for human unpredictability. But that was the thing about humans. They were never unpredictable in quite the same way twice. "Send word to all colonies," he commanded. "Tell them Operation Defiance was a success, and tell them to prepare. The real war is about to begin." Across the solar system, as news of the victory spread, humanity began to mobilize in earnest. They had proven they could fight back. Now they would show the galaxy why humans had survived every catastrophe their homeworld had thrown at them. The age of human defiance had begun, and the universe would never be the same. Ambassador Mei Lin walked through the crystalline halls of the Lysarian conclave, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. The bioluminescent beings floating around her cast, shifting patterns of light across the walls. Their natural radiance, a stark contrast to the artificial lighting she was accustomed to on human ships. Her mission was unprecedented. Convince the Lysarians, one of the oldest species in the galaxy, to ally with humanity against the Crethian Empire. It would have been challenging enough under normal circumstances. The fact that humans had just demonstrated their capacity for devastating warfare made it even more delicate. The Crethians speak of order. The Lysarian elder Luminax communicated directly into her mind, their thoughts tinged with concern. They show us evidence of human chaos, of your species' violent history. May didn't flinch from the telepathic contact. Instead, she opened her mind, allowing the elder to sense her genuine emotions. "We do not deny our past," she responded both mentally and verbally, knowing the Lysarians appreciated the harmony of multiple forms of communication. "But consider this, what species truly grows without facing its own darkness?" The gathered Lysarian elders rippled with colors that May had learned to interpret as thoughtful consideration. She pressed her advantage, drawing up memories of Earth's history, not just the conflicts, but the moments of triumph that followed. The first time nations united to combat climate change, the global cooperation that led to the cure for cancer, the international effort that created the first faster-than-light drive. Fascinating, another elder Vrelix pulsed with shades of deep blue curiosity. "You do not hide your failures, you learn from them." "That's what the Crethians don't understand about us," May explained, projecting images of human resilience. "They see our capacity for violence and assume it's our defining trait. They don't understand that our greatest achievements came from overcoming our worst impulses." The chamber filled with swirling patterns of light as the Lysarians communicated among themselves. May waited patiently, knowing that pushing too hard would only undermine her cause. Her assistant, Dr. Kenzo Yamamoto, had spent months studying Lysarian diplomatic protocols for this moment. Finally, Elder Luminax approached her, their form coalescing into a more humanoid shape, a sign of respect in Lysarian culture. "We have observed something unique in your species. The Crethians possess unity through conformity, but humans, you achieve unity while maintaining diversity. It is chaotic, yes, but it is also beautiful." May felt the first stirring of hope. The Crethians believe they can predict and control everything, but life itself is unpredictable. Evolution requires adaptation, not stagnation. That's why they fear us, because we embrace change rather than resist it. The next few hours became a blur of diplomatic exchanges, cultural sharing, and the careful construction of what would become known as the Luminous Accord. The Lysarians, it turned out, had their own reasons to fear Crethian expansion. Their philosophy of natural growth and evolution stood in direct opposition to the Crethians' desire for perfect order. "There is a saying among my people," May told the assembled elders as they finalized the alliance. "The oak fights the wind and breaks, while the reed bends and survives. Humanity has learned to be the reed, adapting, changing, but never breaking." The implications of the alliance rippled across the galaxy faster than FTL communications could carry the news. The Lysarians weren't just any species. They were the guardians of ancient knowledge, masters of biotechnology that even the Crethians couldn't match. Their decision to stand with humanity changed the entire dynamic of the conflict. As May prepared to return to Earth with the signed accords, Elder Luminax shared one final insight. "We have watched many species rise and fall across the eons. Most fail because they cannot overcome their own nature. But humans, you do not overcome your nature. You embrace it, understand it, and channel it into something greater. Perhaps that is why the Crethians fear you so much." Aboard her ship, reviewing the terms of the alliance, May reflected on those words. The Crethians had tried to use humanity's violent history against them in the galactic political arena. Instead, They had only helped prove why humans were uniquely suited to challenge their dominion. The quantum comm chimed with an urgent message from Admiral Akanjo. Krethian forces had been spotted massing near Nova Terra, humanity's largest colony world. The real test of the Alliance was about to begin. "Send word to the Lysarian fleet," May instructed her communications officer. "Tell them it's time to show the galaxy what happens when wisdom and determination join forces." As her ship jumped to FTL, May thought about how the Krethians had inadvertently created exactly what they feared most, a humanity that was not only uncontained, but now armed with allies who understood their true potential. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and this time, humanity wouldn't be fighting alone. General Rohan Patel watched the evacuation feeds from Nova Terra's command bunker with growing dread. The Krethian assault fleet had emerged from hyperspace with overwhelming force, 5,000 ships against the colony's defensive force of 300. But it wasn't the numbers that worried him most. It was the change in Krethian tactics. "They're learning," his XO, Colonel Nadia Hassan, observed grimly. "No more perfect formations, no predictable attack patterns." The Krethians had finally adapted to human unpredictability by becoming unpredictable themselves. Their ships moved in scattered clusters, using maneuvers that seemed almost human. "Status of the civilian evacuation," Rohan demanded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "60% complete," Nadia reported. "But we're running out of time. The Krethians are targeting our launch corridors with unprecedented precision." The defense of Nova Terra had been planned for months. Underground shelters, hidden shipyards, and scattered resistance cells were all ready. But no one had expected the Krethians to attack with such savagery. They had traded their clinical efficiency for raw aggression, and the result was terrifying. A flash of light caught Rohan's attention. The orbital defense platform Delta 7 had just detonated, taking 3 Krethian destroyers with it. The platform's commander, Lieutenant Zara Chen, had waited until the enemy ships were in point-blank range before overloading the reactor. A suicide mission, but one that bought precious minutes for the evacuating civilians. "Message from the Lysarian fleet," the comm officer announced. "They're still 18 hours out. We have to hold until then." Rohan closed his eyes for a moment, remembering the words of his grandmother, who had survived the resource wars on Earth. "The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire." When he opened them again, his decision was made. "Initiate Protocol Prometheus," he ordered, his voice steady. Nadia's eyes widened. "Sir, that's untested technology. The risk is worth it," Rohan finished. "Send the signal to all defense forces. It's time to show the Krethians why humans are at their most dangerous when pushed to the breaking point." Protocol Prometheus was the product of desperate innovation, a fusion of human ingenuity and Lysarian biotechnology. Every ship in Nova Terra's defense fleet had been secretly equipped with the system, waiting for this moment. As the signal went out, human ships began to change. Lysarian biotech merged with human neural interfaces, creating a connection between ships and crews that had never been possible before. The result was instantaneous. Ships moved with impossible precision, reacting at the speed of thought rather than mechanical systems. The Krethian advance faltered as they encountered resistance unlike anything they had planned for. Human ships no longer needed to communicate through conventional channels. Each crew functioned as a single organism, their vessels extensions of their own bodies. "They're pulling back," Nadia reported, wonder in her voice. "The biotech is working better than we hoped. Our crews are actually predicting Krethian movements before they happen." But the Krethians hadn't become a galactic power by giving up easily. Their ships regrouped and launched a concentrated assault on the colony's main defensive line. The battle that followed would be remembered as one of the most intense engagements in human military history. For 6 hours, Nova Terra's defenders held the line. They fought with everything they had, not just weapons and shields, but with the accumulated knowledge of every human battle ever fought, now processed and applied in real time through the Prometheus systems. When the Krethian commander launched a final, desperate attack on the civilian evacuation corridors, they encountered something that would haunt their tactical databases for generations to come. The remaining human ships moved as one, creating a defensive pattern that defied conventional physics. It wasn't just coordination. It was a manifestation of humanity's deepest instinct: protect their own at any cost. The Lysarian fleet arrived to find the Krethian assault force in retreat, leaving behind the wreckage of what had been intended as a decisive battle. Nova Terra was wounded, but unbowed. More importantly, humanity had demonstrated something that would change the course of the war. "Send word to Earth," Rohan ordered, his voice hoarse from issuing commands. "Tell them Protocol Prometheus was a success, and tell them that Nova Terra stands ready to take the fight to the enemy." As the adrenaline of battle faded, Rohan looked out over the scarred landscape of humanity's greatest colony world. The Krethians had meant this attack to break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had only proven why humans could never truly be defeated. When pushed to their absolute limit, they didn't just survive, they evolved. The defense of Nova Terra marked a turning point in the war. The Krethians had finally learned to fight like humans, only to discover that humans had already moved beyond conventional warfare. The next phase of the conflict would rewrite the rules of combat in ways that would reshape the galaxy itself. High Marshal Rakara of the Krethian Empire stood before the Galactic Council, her crystalline form dulled with fatigue. Behind her, the holographic display showed the impossible: the combined human-Lysarian fleet approaching the Krethian homeworld, not as conquerors, but as harbingers of change. It had started 3 months after the Battle of Nova Terra. The humans, instead of pressing their advantage through military might, had done something no species had anticipated. They had started sharing their technology, not their weapons, but their innovations in medicine, agriculture, and environmental restoration. Fleet Admiral Victoria Torres, the architect of humanity's final strategy, addressed the Council from the human delegation's platform. "We could continue this war," she stated, her voice carrying the weight of experience. "We could fight until one side is utterly defeated, or we can show you why the Krethian Empire's greatest mistake wasn't trying to contain us, it was failing to understand what humanity truly represents." The council chamber erupted in murmurs as Victoria activated a holographic presentation. It showed human history, but not the sanitized version the Krethians had studied. This was the raw, unfiltered story of a species that had nearly destroyed itself multiple times, only to emerge stronger, wiser, and more determined. "You saw our capacity for violence and assumed it was our defining trait," Victoria continued. "What you failed to see was our capacity for growth. Every time humanity faced extinction, we didn't just survive, we transformed. We took our darkest moments and turned them into catalysts for advancement." The display shifted to show the aftermath of various human conflicts, but focused not on the destruction. Instead, it highlighted the reconstruction, the innovations born from necessity, the ways humans had learned to heal both their world and themselves. "The Prometheus Protocol wasn't just a military innovation," she explained. "It was proof of what we've been trying to tell you. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight, it's our ability to connect, to adapt, and to grow beyond our limitations." High Marshal Rakara stepped forward, her crystalline form catching the light. "You could destroy us," she acknowledged. "Your fleets stand ready, yet you choose this." "Because destruction isn't our goal," Victoria replied. "Never was. The Krethian Empire sought perfection through control. We seek something else: perfection through change, through understanding, through connection." The council watched in stunned silence as Victoria revealed humanity's true endgame. The Prometheus Protocol, combined with Lysarian biotechnology, had evolved into something revolutionary. It wasn't just a way to link ships and crews, it was a bridge between different forms of consciousness, a means for diverse species to truly understand each other. "We're not here to end the Krethian Empire," Victoria declared. "We're here to invite you to join us in something greater, a galaxy where strength comes not from dominance but from diversity, where different species don't just coexist, they evolve together." The impact of her words rippled through the council chamber. The Crethians, who had spent millennia pursuing perfect order, were confronted with a different kind of perfection, one that embraced chaos as a source of growth rather than a force to be contained. Ambassador Mei Lin, now speaking for both humanity and their Lysarian allies, stepped forward. The choice before us is simple. We can remain separate, bound by our fears and limitations, or we can embrace what humanity learned long ago, that true strength lies not in resisting change, but in learning to change together. The next few hours would reshape galactic civilization. The Crethian Empire, faced with irrefutable evidence of a better way, did something unprecedented in their history. They chose to evolve. The peace treaty that followed wasn't a document of surrender, but a blueprint for transformation. As the council session concluded, Victoria found herself standing with High Marshal Rakara in the chamber's observation dome, watching the combined fleet overhead, human ships, Lysarian vessels, and Crethian cruisers, no longer in battle formation but arranged in a new pattern of cooperation. "Your species truly is remarkable," Rakara observed. "We thought we were containing a threat. Instead, we were fighting our own salvation." Victoria smiled, remembering all the battles, all the losses, all the moments of desperation that had led to this point. "That's the thing about humans," she replied. "We're at our best not when we're fighting against something, but when we're fighting for something. And what we fought for wasn't victory, it was understanding." As news of the treaty spread across the galaxy, species that had watched the conflict from afar began to reach out, eager to learn more about this remarkable transformation. Humanity had done more than win a war. They had sparked an evolutionary leap in galactic civilization. The universe would never be the same. But then again, that had been the point all along.